For those who are not aware, I think everybody is, most people are, the role that Ohr Somayach has played across the globe in Klal Yisrael, every community that you go to, everywhere you go, you will find Ohr Somayach graduates. And the Ohr Somayach graduates are not only in a secondary role. You will find Ohr Somayach graduates who are the Rabbanim, they're the educators, they're the teachers, and in many cases they're the leaders of the community. I don't think that we ever ask anybody to do what they can't do, but anyone who is able to give away, has extra spare meiser geld or tzedakah money that's earmarked for tzedakah, I can think of no better area where that money can be put to use as a benefit to the yeshiva and as a benefit to all of Klal Yisrael. Masechta in the Gemara in Shas has 176 pages. It goes to Daf Kuf Nun Vav, 176. The truth of the matter is not really 176 because all Gemaras start with Daf Beis. Gemaras start with Daf Beis, but it ends on Kuf Ayin Vav, which is 176. And the longest chapter in Tehillim is Kuf Yud Tes, which has 176 psukim. And of course, the significance of the number 176 totally escapes me. So it's just interesting that it is on. I do not know I have not, I think somebody once told me something, I'm not sure, but I do not have a clarity on exactly what the significance of 176 is. Whatever the case, Nasso is the longest parsha in the Torah, and you guys are good. Those of you who keep 2 days of Yom Tov are actually going to, some people in Israel, if you keep 2 days of Yom Tov, this Shabbos, you're not going to be reading Nasso because it's still Shavuos for the 2 dayers. Now, in the other yeshiva that I'm at, what they're going to do is at Mincha on Shabbos, they're going to read all of Parshas Nasso for the guys, so that they hear Nasso, then next week they're caught up. In America, they're going to be one Parsha behind us. In Chutz La'aretz, they're actually going to be a Parsha behind us for each week. We're going to be next week. Next week, they're going to read Nasso, and we're going to be reading Bahaloscha. And they do a double when they get to Chukas and Korach. They do a double. Chukas, Korach, they do a double up. In America, we don't. That's when they catch up to us. That's when they catch up. Okay. V'daber Hashem al Moshe Leibor. Nasso es rosh b'nei Gershon gamhem. Leveis avosam lemishpachosam. Take a head count of the sons of Gershon. Now, if you remember from last week, what was happening here is that after counting the Jewish people, the Torah then goes into the sons of Levi. And Levi has 3 sons, Gershon, Kehos, and Merari. They're the Levim. And the Levim are the ones who are going to be carrying the equipment for the equipment of the Mishkan, and each group of Levim has a separate assignment. So Gershon last week started with Kehos. And Kehos, it says, is actually the middle brother. The Levim from the tribe of Kehos, they carried what we'll call the holy items, the Aron Kodesh and the Mishka and the Mizbeach, the altars and the menorah. They carried the holy equipment. A hoodie. Do me a favor, put on the air, okay? Thank you. They carry the now. Gershon, which is the next brother, so they are going to carry the what I call the software, meaning the curtains and the things that are the various curtains and draperies that hung in the Mishkan. Now, what's interesting is because it says like this: Nasso es rosh b'nei Gershon gamhem, them also. Count them also. Lebeis avosam mishpachosam. Now, the Mefarshim talk about this word gamhem, them also, meaning them in addition to Kehos, who was already told in the previous parsha that they're carrying their own kodesh and the holy equipment. So let me ask you a question: which one would you think is easier to carry, the soft curtains, or the Aron Kodesh and the Shulchan and the Mizbeach and so on and so forth? Which one do you think is easier? Software should be easier. Except we know that the Aron Kodesh carried those that carried it. It was Nosse es Nosso. The Aron Kodesh carried those that carried it, which is often how we appeal to people for money, for yeshivas, by letting them know who's supporting who. Is it the money supporting the Torah, or the Torah supporting people that they should have money? So the Aron HaKodesh carried those that carried it, symbolically. Now, Rav Moshe Feinstein says the other utensils, since they had Kedusha, were also easier to carry. They were also easier to carry. And it was ironically harder to carry. The curtains were heavier for them to carry, as opposed to the actual metal, solid gold and metal utensils. But the lesson here is that when you're carrying something, why is the word gam? So we understand Nasso es rosh b'nei Gershon gam heim, also them, meaning in addition to kahos. That means there's something similar to the way they worked. We understand that the children of the Gershon family, they had to put in all of their strength. They had to put in all of their energy to carry these curtains. And the Torah is teaching you that even if it's lighter, like the Bnei Kahos, the Aron Kodesh, still do it with full energy. That means when it comes to doing the mitzvahs, we should put in, no matter how easy the mitzvahs are, do the mitzvahs with full energy. Do the mitzvahs with your full strength. Even if it seems like an easy mitzvah, do it with full strength and do it with full enthusiasm. Number one. Number two, how do you feel what would you rather carry? Would you rather carry the menorah, or would you rather carry the curtains? Or the outside poles of the Beis HaMikdash, which the Bnei Merari. If I had asked you a choice, we're going to move some stuff out of the Beis HaMikdash. Do you want to carry a Sefer Torah, or you want to carry some chairs? Which would you want to carry? Sefer Torah. Probably a Sefer Torah. And if you carry chairs, how do you feel? You got to be done, but in the grand scheme of things, which is more important? So the Torah is telling you over here that sometimes in life, maybe you can't be a major contributor. But when you're a contributor, you should also see your job as being the most important job you could be doing now and do it with full strength. Sometimes people feel like this always, like, I mean, at the end of the day, in all Jewish organizations, it always comes down to fundraising. So there's the big hitters, the big donors, and there's my $18. I don't know what my $18 could do. Give your if that's what you're capable of, give it with the same enthusiasm. Don't feel that your role, because remember, God doesn't grade us. God doesn't grade us based on that objective, the way the world looks at, this guy gave a lot, this guy gave a little. God grades on how much effort you put in relative to what you're capable of doing. And therefore the Torah says, whatever your job is, so you take a look and say, wow, you look at the Reb Moshe Feinsteins of the world, look at the big Talmidei Chachamim, they know all of Shas and all of Poskim. What is my learning a couple of pages in Baba Basra going to do? What is that going to, what are you learning in Baba Basra? We don't know who gets greater reward. Remember the background they came from, the background we come from. Each person relative to his challenges in life. So for one person to learn an entire page of Gemara, they once made, who was it who made I think Reb Moshe Feinstein told somebody there was a man who took him a year to learn one page of Gemara. Guy who had no background and eventually came to Torah later in life. And at the end of the year, he said to make a siyum on one page of Gemara. Because for him, to learn through one page of Gemara, and somebody else learns an entire Masechta, but he learned through a page of Gemara. So person has to know, that's the first thing the Torah is teaching us over here, number one. Then the Torah says like this. Go to, the Torah describes the son, the Bnei Merari, and they carry the hardware, which is they carry all of the poles and the hooks and the poles, the outside wall of the Mishkan. So you have three brothers again. You have Gershon, Kehas, and Merari. Kehas is the middle brother, but he's the father of Amram, and from Amram comes Moshe and Aaron. So there are four brothers. We're going to see about that later. Now turn to Parakeh. Turn to page 750. So here the Torah says, now that the Mishkan, they have everything is assigned. And then the Torah says like this, 3 lines from the bottom on 750. They should send out of the camp. Called Sarua, anybody who's got Sara'as, leprosy. V'chol Zov, anybody who's had an emission which makes him impure. V'chol Tamei L'nefesh, anybody who is ritually impure. Send them out of the camp. They have to go out different areas outside of the main Jewish camp. Now, the question becomes like this. We know that at Har Sinai, everybody who had any sort of ailment was cured. somebody was lame, somebody was blind, somebody was ill. Anybody who was at Har Sinai was cured. Whatever they were suffering from, whatever physical ailment, with some sort of, maybe they had a bacteria, maybe they were White Sox fans, whatever they were ill, and they were cured at Har Sinai. If that's the case, how come you have people over here who have saras, and you have people who have their tameh? How did that happen? So the Meforshim explain that after Har Sinai, the Jewish people, the world reached a state of perfection at Har Sinai. We're coming to Shavuos now. Soon it's going to be Shavuos. Torah was given at Har Sinai. Do you know that there's a medrash that says that when the Torah was given, there was perfect stillness in the world? Not a bird chirped. Nothing moved. Nothing moved in the world at Har Sinai. All that happened was they heard Hashem's voice. Now, the basic idea behind it is that it takes away any possibility. Anybody say, well, there was some really super ventriloquist out there, or somebody who was really good at making voices, or some illusionist or something else. What's his name, David Copperfield, or one of these guys. Everything was perfectly still. That's what the Medrash says. So that nobody should say there was anything other than the experience of God at Sinai. That's the basic idea at Har Sinai. But there's another idea. When something is moving, it hasn't reached its perfected state. If I have a spoon and I have food in the spoon and I'm moving it towards my mouth, it has not reached its perfected state. And if I'm chewing it, it hasn't reached its perfected state. And if I'm writing down something on a piece of paper, it hasn't reached the perfect state. And when a child is moving around the house at 10:30 at night when he's 4 years old and he should really be in bed, he's not in the perfected state. And when your wife is still out with the credit card and she's moving around with it and swiping it, it's not in its perfected state. So the perfected state is where there's no movement whatsoever. And therefore at Har Sinai, the world reaches perfection. Jewish people are cured. Everybody's good. Where did they mess up? What brought it all back? The sin of the golden calf. After the sin of the golden calf, there's a regression, and now they're in a situation where everything could go wrong. Now, take a look at 752, because this is what I want to get to today. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe Lemor. Daber el Bnei Yisrael, 4 lines to the top. Daber el Bnei Yisrael, Ish o Isha, Ki yasu bikochatos adam limo omal b'Hashem, ve'oshma ha'nefesh ahi. Take a look at Rashi. It's the right column, top line. Harei chazar v'kosav kan parshas gozel v'nishba al sheker. See it, right column, top line. Somebody who steals, and he's accused of stealing, and he swears falsely that he didn't steal, so then he has to pay back and he has to bring a korban. Hiya amura beparshas vayikra. This is what it says in Vayikra. U'mal amal v'Hashem v'kichesh ba'amiso. And he denies. And this v'nishnes kan. Why is it repeated here if this was already said in the section in Vayikra? 3rd line of Rashi. Bishvil shnei dvarim shenischachu. But 2 things that were now the Torah enlightens us. Ha'echad shekosa v'hisvadu. It says that they should confess. Limeid she'eno chayiv chomesh ve'oshem al piyedim ad sheyoveh b'davar. You're not liable for the korban and the penalty of 20% extra that you add on the repayment, unless you do it on your own, not where witnesses. If witnesses testify against you that you stole, you only pay double. You pay double for the theft. But the penalty and the korban, that's only if you admit it on your own. Ve'asheni al gezel hager. Somebody who steals from a convert, and then the convert dies and there's nobody left to pay because he doesn't have any heirs. Shehu nasun la Kohanim. It goes to the Kohanim. Okay, so the Torah tells us what the novelties are over here. Now, just 1 second. Now I'm going to hit you with the hard one. Look at the next pasuk. V'hisvadu es chatosam asher osu. You confess. You say vidui, like we do on Erev Yom Kippur. Start banging the chest, start clopping away. And I told you that the idea is not to make is how as strong a sound as possible. Sometimes I hear people hitting their chest. So it sounds like there's a hollow. It sounds like a train going through a tunnel. That's not what that's not a question of who could bang the loudest. You could even do like this. When I say vidui, like we had last week, I just do like this. It's not a question of hitting it. It's a question. You can even do like this. Just point. This is the cause of the trouble right here. And that you could do. What is vidui? Vidui means that you verbally confess what you've done. Now, God knows what we've done. So why are we confessing? Well, even Catholics have that idea, right? You go to, what's it called when you go into the booth with the confession? That's what it's called, baby, that's why. You go into the booth, and you confess. It's like the guy goes into the booth, there's a priest over there, and he says, Father, I have to confess I stole a car. He says, well, that's very bad. He says, would you like, could I give it to you? He goes, no. So he says, but what am I supposed to do? He says, well, I have to return it to the person you stole it from. He says, yeah, but I offered them and they want it back. He says, then you could keep it. Okay, the priest goes home that night and he sees his car is missing.
Full circle.
He said he offered it to him. in any event, so what is it about vidui? Did you get that? That was like ranked. That was like a 9.5 on a 10 as far what's the idea of confessing? Ashavnu, bagadnu, gazalnu, and then we say achetcha chatonu lefanecha b'lasha achetcha. Then we start the achet, and we say that. What's the point? Why are we doing it? You know why we're doing it? You know the real reason is? God knows what we did. God knows everything. The answer is we don't always know. And sometimes even what we do know, we're not willing to admit to ourselves. And that's why the vidui has to be verbal. Not enough to think it. Because when I say to myself, when you say out loud, one of the achets is that we tormented people. And I actually say, when we tormented, we actually say, well, please Hashem, forgive me, I tormented my parents. I tormented my teachers, even though they deserved it. I tormented my wife, I've tormented it. And we say it, it forces us to confront it. Yes, I've actually done that. Sometimes we just kind of don't even think about it. Just don't go there. And then when you say the vidui voice says, yes, you are going there now. I've actually done that. And sometimes we start cringing in shame. Right? Sometimes if you're really saying a vidui, you start like, boy, I really can't believe I did that. That right there is the greatest atonement. To get to the point where we're actually embarrassed about what we've done is the greatest form of atonement. And so the vidui, the first thing is a person has to confess the sin. Now, Yehudi, you have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Wouldn't it then be better to do vidui in a language you can understand?
Yes, you do. We say you should. We say al chechacha. We do according to the way it's written in the machzor, and then you say in any language you can understand. You talk. Yeah. Oh yeah. Not only it wouldn't it be good. That's the way you should do it. It's saying it in Aramaic ain't going to help you. In Aramaic, we'll get past it real quick. Yeah, shkoyach. Don't say shkoyach. Say thank you. Then you feel it that you owe somebody. That's the idea. Of course we're supposed to say the vidui. Now, question. A guy goes up to a woman and he is a known gangster. And he says, Hareyat mikudeshes li. This guy has been eating treif, robbing banks, the worst person in the world. And he goes up to a woman and he says to the woman, Hareyat mikudeshes li, on condition that I'm a tzaddik. What's the halacha in the Gemara? Mikudesh. Why? We have to be concerned. Maybe he's thought tshuva. Maybe he had a thought of doing. What does it take to do tshuva? I regret my past behavior. That's tshuva. But wait a second. What's vidui? Vidui is he only thought it, but we know that vidui has to be verbal. So how could that even be a suffix kedushin? In other words, we have to be concerned that it's a kedushin. Not vadi kedushin. We have to be concerned it's a kedushin because maybe he did tshuva. When did he do tshuva? By thinking that he regrets his past. Well, that's thinking isn't enough. We just said the hisvadu. You have an obligation to say vidu. You have an obligation to actually state it. So how could the Gemara and Kedushin say that we have to be concerned that maybe the Juve never said it?
His proposal, his verbal confession?
No, he didn't make a confession. He says on condition that I'm a tzaddik. He didn't say that he regrets anything. Yet the Gemara says, in the Gemara itself says we have to be concerned that maybe he thought it. So which is it? Is it thinking it, or is it, which one is it? So here's a very important principle, gentlemen. There's a difference between your obligation and the atonement. An atonement, we could gain atonement by thinking it. I've been forgiven. As soon as I regret it in my mind, a moment before a person dies, he could regret an entire life misled. Don't plan on it. A person shouldn't plan on it because they never know when they're going to die. But a person, if the moment he thinks that he regrets it, boom, he's been atoned for. But that has nothing to do with the halacha that you've got an obligation to do vidui. They're two separate things. What's my obligation? Your obligation to do vidui. What about an atonement? An atonement is based on what you're thinking. They're two completely separate realms. Remember, people have always asked, remember when we're learning about the Kohanim, people ask about why is it that nowadays a Kohen's not allowed to, since anyway we're tameh nowadays, everybody's tameh, so why can't Kohanim go into cemeteries nowadays? Why can't Kohanim come in contact with dead bodies? Since anyway, we're all considered tamei mace nowadays. So what's the problem? The answer is that there is the prohibition and there is the ramification. The ramification of a Kohen coming into contact, or anybody coming into contact with a dead body, is they become tamei. But there's a prohibition. A Kohen is not allowed to come into contact with the dead body regardless of the ramifications. There happens to be a ramification. I told you, it will be roughly the equivalent of saying you're not allowed to eat pork. Once I've eaten pork, I become porculated. Therefore, I can continue eating pork. You can. You ate the pork. You have to stop eating pork. What effect did it have on your neshama? And what with the avera? So what? But at the end of the day, there is continuously a prohibition. Not allowed to eat pork. There's a prohibition. The same thing when it comes to, you have to say vidui. There's a mitzvah. There's actually a mitzvah to confess. Not to other people. To HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a mitzvah vidui. What about the effect of are you tzaddik? That could happen instantaneously with a thought. Immediately, I regret my life. Okay, you're now a tzaddik, and a person could become a rasha like that. So, if a person could say, "I'm being mekudesh that I'm a rasha," but this is one of the 36 tzaddikim in a generation. Yeah, but he may have had a thought of idol worship at that moment. He may have thought, "I deny the existence of God. I believe in idols." At that moment, he turns into a rasha. What about vidui? Vidui is a separate obligation that we have to say. We have to confess our sins. Okay. Now, then the Torah goes on to Pasuk Yud. And the Torah says, first the Torah describes what happens. So let's go back again. Let's say somebody stole money from a convert, and the convert died. So then what does he do with the money? He has to give it to the Kohanim. He gives it to the tribe, to the Kohanim, because there are no heirs to give it to. Okay? What else does a person have to give Kohanim? By the way, again, is there anybody here who's a Kohen besides me? Okay. I told you it's lonely at the top. Right? What else do you have to give Kohanim? What's that? Time? Tithe, right, tithes. Right. You have to give them truma. There are all sorts of things you give Kohanim. You have to give Kohanim truma. You have to redeem the firstborn son. 5. If the husband and wife, neither of them are Kohanim or Levim, the firstborn son has to be redeemed for 5 silver pieces, which weighs 100 grams, which nowadays is about 300 shekels. Anybody who needs to be redeemed, speak to me, right, with your wallet. With and it happens nowadays. Yeah. It's good. I mean, what I don't do for Torah. But a redemption, I've actually done redemptions in the yeshiva. Normally they redeem the baby when he's 30 days old. We do sometimes in the yeshiva guys who never had a pidyon aben. So we've done a pidyon. I had a real good day once. We did 5 in one day. That was a good day. That was like the perks. That was good.
USD?
It's about, today with the shekel, it's about 100 USD. Whoa. It's about 100 USD. And the way it's done, I'll get to you one second. The way it's done is that the Kohen, I have silver pieces. There's no official silver coin. It just has to be 5 silver slugs. and you give it to, you sell it to the father. The father pays you whatever the rate of 100 grams of silver is. The higher, the better. And then it fluctuates. When he does the pidyon, he gives the coins back to the Kohen, and the money goes into the Kohen's pocket. I've had people say to me, "Oh, you give that money to tzedakah?" I say, "Excuse me, I don't ask you what you do with your income. This is my income. What is your business? If I'm in a good mood, I'll give 10%. If I'm in a better mood, I'll give 20%. But what's it got to do with you? This is my money. Well, I got to give it. You're very generous with my income. I don't see you giving away your entire income." My wife calls it blood money. I don't care. It's perfectly legitimate, and you have to do it. You have to. I had a guy once pulled out. This guy was a rich guy. I said to him, "How much?" He said, "How much is it?" He had to redeem himself. He said, "How much is it?" I said, "Whatever it's worth to you." In my early days, I said, "Whatever it's worth to you." He pulled out $300. I started sweating. I never seen so much money in one place in my life. I said, "No, that's excessive. That's too much." In a moment of madness, I turned it down. But nowadays, it fluctuates. The silver market goes up and down. It's been up in SARS. I remember once it was up to about 400, maybe 450 shekels, and it's as low as 200 to 250. But anybody who needs one should speak to me to have the pidyon haben done. When it's done for a baby, obviously the baby is at 30 days. The father does it. But a person who hasn't had a pidyon haben done and he's already over bar mitzvah has an obligation to do it. Sorry, you had a question. Go ahead.
Does it apply if there's a miscarriage before the...
So that if the miscarriage is before 40 days, it still applies. If after 40 days, not. And if the baby, what's it called, a C-section also does not apply. And if there was a girl born for, it's very rare, by the way. Pidyon haben is very rare because you do it count percentage-wise. First of all, there's a limit to one per family, maximum. There's only going to be one firstborn. So it's a limit to one per family. If either parent is a Kohen or a Levi, the whole family's out. If there was a girl born first, so you talk about 50% of the time. I think the numbers in babies that are born, I think is about 1 out of 50 baby boys that are 1 out of 50 births is a pidyon haben. It's not that common. So you need a lot of circumstances. It could be because there was a miscarriage, and it could be a C-section. It's really not as common as I would like it to be.
If the miscarriage happens,
both at once.
what did you say about the 40 days?
If a woman had a miscarriage before 40 days, so then the next son is a firstborn. If the miscarriage is after 40 days, that's more viable. So then she's no longer a pet rechem. It no longer counts as a firstborn.
And what was the thing with the C-section?
A C-section also, if the baby was born through a C-section or there was a C-section before the baby was born, there's no.
What was the first kid born through C-section?
That's it.
Does
Game
it
over.
count as like a birth?
No, yeah, that counts as a birth. He's born. He's here.
Yeah.
But it's not. There's no pidyon haben.
Okay.
It's got to be a natural birth.
Understood.
Now you also, please.
What about Garen?
They have to do, sure.
They have to do?
Sure. For first. Oh, the ger himself, I'm not sure, but if a ger has a child, certainly. If he has a child, so they have to ask Rabbi Bradowitz about that. I don't think the ger himself, but if he has a child, I think, yeah. But I'll double check it you also have to give a coin at the time of the Beis Hamikdash. There's something called the Zroa L'Chayayim in Keva. That means that when an animal is eaten, and we're not talking about the korbanos in the Beis Hamikdash now. We're not talking about the korbanos in the Beis Hamikdash. When you have a backyard barbecue and you shech the cow, you have to give the coin the Zroa L'Chayayim in Keva. Those are 3 cuts of meat. The Zroa is a forearm. And again, there's speak in halacha where it is. L'Chayayim is the jawbone, which includes the tongue. And keva is a certain cut of meat in the middle, prime rib. And if you like tongue, if you're somebody who likes tongue will only be available for you when Mashiach comes from the freezers that are owned by Kohens who are selling them. So you have to purchase it, because if you shecht an animal, the tongue automatically goes to a Kohen. Then the other way you could get it is by buying it from him. It may be delicious, but I'm in it for the money. So do I have? No. Well, nowadays we don't do this, but we will be, and I will have freezers, and I'm going to be going into the meat business, boys. And if you think kosher food is expensive now, you just wait till you get to my place, right? For tongue, Right. You know, there's no. I don't know you. I don't know you. You know, the fact that we've met here, that means it's going to mean absolutely nothing to me. Tamid, who? You know, So you know, it's a living. You know, so there's a lot of stuff you have to give to the Kohen. Now, look what the Torah says. We're hoping for those days. Oh, by the way, I told you the Kohen Gadol. If the Kohen Gadol was not wealthy, the other Kohanim had to make him wealthy. How do you like that? How do you like that? My application has already been sent in.
To make him more feared?
Yeah, give him more. You know, gives him authority. Yes, absolutely. Very good.
It's Israel's job to make
The Kohanim,
just
the other
Kohanim?
Kohanim, yeah.
Okay.
No, the other Kohanim, you have to make him wealthy. That's what it says. Now, take a look at the pasuk. So it says like this: V'chol truma l'chol kodshe b'nei Yisrael asher yukriven l'kohen lo yiyeh. The truma that they have to give the kohen, and then the Torah says, "The ish es kadoshav lo yihiyu." Literally, how does the article translate? It's very funny. A man's holies shall be his. Ish asher yitein l'kohen lo yihiyeh. What a man gives to the kohen shall be his. Now make up your mind. It belongs to the kohen or belongs to you. What does it mean, the holies, a man's holies shall be his? So the first thing we learn over here is there's something called, you have the option of giving to the Kohen that you want. In other words, when you separate Truma, you can choose the Kohen that you want to give it to. That's your option. That means you get the benefit in the mitzvah of choosing the Kohen, number one. But what the commentaries say over here is that the Ishes Kadosh of Lo Yiyeh, that if a person, take a look at Rashi, Umedrash Haggadah, it's the left side of Rashi, left column, 4 lines from the bottom. Umedrash Haggadah, the Medrash says, if you find it, please show the person next to you. The Ishes Kadosh of Lo Yiyu, Mishe Me'akev Ma'asrosav, one who withholds his tithings. The Eino Nostan, he doesn't give them. Lo Yiyu Amaisros, the tithe will be his, meaning, Sof She'ein Sadeu Ose Ela Echad Me'asara She'yatza Labudu Lasos. His field will only produce 1/10 of what it produced. That means, if a man withholds, Vishes Kodoshav Lo Yiyeh, if a man withholds it, Isha Asher Yitein LaKohen Lo Yiyeh, you're going to have what you withhold. You have a field, and you withhold your tithing, you'll have 1/10. That means it's going to decrease. So that's how the pasuk runs. Now, there's a very interesting medrash. And the medrash says that you have to listen to this medrash because it's going to sound strange. There was a man who didn't tithe properly. He didn't give away as much as he was supposed to. And one day he was gripped by a ruach ra, a spirit of madness, a spirit of folly, and he took a club and he walked into his wine cellar, his own wine cellar, and started smashing barrels. And when his son walked in, he said, "What are you doing?" And then the son grabbed the club and he started smashing the barrels also. Guy walked in and destroyed his own property. Now, have you ever seen anybody do that? That's what the Medrash says, the Medrash Tanchuma. Guy didn't meiser properly, so he had a spirit of folly and he went and he just trashed the joint. You ever seen anybody do that? Ever seen anybody go just smash up all of their merchandise, just walk into his own store and start smashing the stuff in his own store? You ever see it? What's the remember the Medrash isn't just telling you, oh, you didn't give meiser, you get ruach ra, you are folly. Well, let's see it. Where do you ever see it? And the answer is, if you think about it, you see it all the time. You see it all the time. Haven't you ever heard of anybody who's made like a really, really dumb investment? Maybe we ourselves have done it. And then we just walk around later after the guy loses his mind, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? Why was I thinking to import heavy winter coats to Florida? And what was I thinking? Why was I bringing ski equipment to Yerushalayim? What was I thinking? And also the business goes kaput or your investment. You never saw anybody do that. And afterwards, what were you thinking? I've seen people open a business. Hey, that's the business you're opening up over here. There's a guy by a bus stop and he's selling antiques right next door to a bus stop. Sell iced coffee, man. You open up, sell iced coffee. People are getting on a bus. Sell iced coffee. What's selling antiques for? He's going to buy it within 2 weeks. He's closed. What were you thinking? The answer is that we make a mistake, gentlemen. We think free choice is our thoughts. That's not where free choice is. Free choice is often the thoughts is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts the thoughts into a person's mind. That thought is also the same way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could cause a snake to attack a person. He could be attacked by thoughts also. So if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants a person to lose his money, he has this guy invest in Magen Davids to be sold in Iran. And the guy's wondering, gee, how come nobody's buying? You know, what's happening over here? Where did that thought, what was wrong? Hashem put that thought in your mind. Hashem put the thought in your mind. Free choice is how we react afterwards. I know of several cases of extremely wealthy, I'm talking about mega rich people who lost tons of money. And I know that we all think to ourselves, if I was that rich, I would never do that. You know, 1/3 goes under my mattress, and 1/3 I invest. That's because we think that he also had that choice, and he just made a stupid decision. At a certain point, Baruch Hu decided that it's time for him to lose his money. So he gives him the thought to make this investment and roll the dice, and it was a bad investment. Why? Because he didn't tithe properly. He didn't tithe properly. Hashem decided to take it away. The guy smashing his barrels in our days happens all the time. We often smash our own barrels in many ways. And therefore the Medrash is telling us that you don't tithe properly, so you're going to end up with nothing, number one. Number two, the Meforshim read the pasuk the following. Now look carefully at the pasuk again. 3 lines from the bottom. There's a story about a guy who is summoned to the king. And on the way to the king, he has 3 groups of friends. And the first group, now this guy's in trouble. He's going to be punished by the king. Or he's going to on trial in front of the king. The first group of friends starts walking with him, and at a certain point they drop out. You know, we're not interested in getting too close to the trial over here, because who knows what kind of trouble we're going to run into. Second group of friends are a little bit more loyal. They walk him up to the palace gates. And at the palace gates, they turn around and they say, oh, this is far enough for us. We're not interested anymore. And it's only a very few people that escort him beyond that point. Only very few people. So the Chafetz Chaim says that a few people, only a handful, are willing to walk into the king with him. Chafetz Chaim says, you know, when a person dies, the first thing that leaves him are his material possessions. There's like this guy sitting in a restaurant and he's bragging to his friend about how rich he is. He says, nobody can take it away from me. It can't be taken away from me. I have too much to be taken away from me. And just then the waiter passed by, he says, yes, but you can be taken away from it. So when a person dies, his material needs, all of his material possessions they're useless. Nothing there. It's all gone. Can't help him. His family escorts him a little more. They escort him all the way to the grave. But what goes with him up to the king? Only his mitzvahs and mitzvahs, only his good deeds. That's the only thing that goes with you. And that's unfortunately, that's often very little. That's the only thing that goes beyond the palace gates that goes with you. So the pasuk reads, "V'ishes kadoshav," a man, his holy things, the things that we've done, the good kedusha, the good things we've done in life, lo yiyu, those are his eternal possessions. That's the only thing we have. The material possessions disappears. Material possessions. And by the way, even in the non-Jewish or secular world, they recognize this. You know what the proof is? How do you ever eulogize a guy? Guy dies. What is the eulogy? Nobody ever gets up there and says, boy, this guy really liked hot dogs. I mean, he could, Frank could really put down some burgers. Nobody ever says that in a eulogy. His whole life was burgers. Oh, Frank with a 6-pack? Man, don't get in his way. He could knock down a 6-pack faster than anybody I know, especially if it's cold Michelob. Nobody ever says that. Nobody talks about Michelob at a what do they talk about? Oh yeah, Frank, he was, I once saw him holding a door open for a crippled lady. He was really a good guy. He held open a door for a crippled lady who was holding a package. How come they always try to find out something? They don't talk about what he lived for. Oh, Frank, he loved the bar. He loved bars. Yeah. And boy, rap, that was his favorite. They never talk about that. When they try to find out some good deeds that a person, because they know that at the moment of truth, what really counts. So the Chafetz Chaim says, we have three companions. We have our possessions, we have our family, and we have our good deeds. The only thing that goes with us, Ishes Kodoshav Lo Yiyu. And the Chafetz Chaim gives a very famous analogy. A guy's a businessman, and he goes off to this island. And there are diamonds and gems all over the island. Place is just beautiful. They just found, by the way, an enormous ruby. Did you hear about this? They found this enormous ruby that they came out. It's one of the biggest rubies that's ever been found.
How much?
I don't remember. It's just huge. They haven't cut it yet, but it's just enormous. They found where's the ruby place? One of these. I forgot where they found it in the mine somewhere in Africa. They found a gorgeous, big, humongous ruby. So this guy goes off to this island. He's on business, and the place is just everywhere you look. There are diamonds, rubies, precious gems. Problem is, they're not worth anything. They're not worth. The only thing that's worth anything is fat, animal fats. They trade in animal fats. And this guy, he's on their business. He wants to make some money. And the animal fats are very valuable on the island. So he goes over and he takes his suitcases, loads them up with animal fats, packed with animal fats. And just as he's leaving, he kind of grabs a couple of diamonds and puts them in his pocket, but loads suitcases full, gets on a ship, and he comes home. And by the time he gets home, he unloads half the fat has spoiled. And the other part of the fat is people say, what the heck, what is that? And he reaches in his pocket and pulls out diamonds. Now that's valuable. So Chafetz Chaim says people spend their time in this world accumulating the fats, accumulating useless schmaltz. And the diamonds, the things that are really worth something, which is Torah and mitzvahs, people grab, maybe towards the end, grab a handful and stuff it in their pocket. That's what the Torah is talking about. Ishes Kodoshav Lo Yeh. The only thing a person takes with him is his mitzvahs and the Ma'asim Tovim. And again, Rabbi Victor Miller said a person should live his life. A person has to think what he'd like them to say at his funeral. What would you like people to say about you? What would I like to have people say? Oh wow, he was, this guy was really into pizza with pepperonis. Boy, that was his favorite. What would you like them to say at your funeral? Something that's very sobering thought, but we have to think about it. I'd like them to say I was a good person, that I was nice to people, that I learned some Torah. I'd like that person to live his life the way they want to be eulogized. What would they like to have written on their tombstone? I heard a story about a guy in Israel. There was these kibbutzim, and right in the kibbutz area, a bunch of kibbutzim, and there was a guy who was a baker for one of the kibbutzim, and he made this incredible apple cinnamon cake. And he left in his will they should write the recipe of the apple cinnamon cake on his tombstone. They wrote the recipe of the apple, and people used to come to visit the tombstone with a pen and paper. Let's see, what was that? And they'd be writing the recipe of the. Life is serious. That's what the Chafetz Chaim is saying. That's the Ishes Kodoshav Lo Yeh. Can't take any of it with us. All we can take with us is Tshuva and Ma'asim Tovim, and we just have to remember that it doesn't only mean man to God, it means man to man behavior as well. How we treat people, being nice to people, and so on and so forth. Again, I'm not talking to anybody here because you guys already made that choice to devote your life to it. But there are people that need to know that this is what life is about. And we all know it. At the end of the day, we all know it. It's just a question of getting motivated to do it. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow, Mirz Hashem. Those of you who are going to be up all night, I'm going to be giving, Mirz Hashem, I'm going to give the shiur tomorrow. So you're welcome to join. Say, even if you don't go to the Gemara shiur, we'll have the Parashat shiur at 12 o'clock for those who are interested. This is 5 after 12. On a daily, but this is normally 5 after 12.
We had it earlier than that today.
What's that?
We had it earlier than that today, right? The Gemara shiur was earlier than that.
The Gemara shiur is at 10:20, 10:30. The Chumash shiur is at 5 after 12.
And I spoke with the rabbi. He said that it's remaining.
Okay, but ask him, tell him you need a Gemara.
Like just anyone that's full Hebrew, that's fine.
Yeah, anything is full Hebrew, as long as it's Baba Basra. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Rabbi.